Hi folks, this is my review of the Etnia Barcelona brown gradient photochromic HD lenses. And these are in the Expositio HB-VL is the model number, but it's really more of a review of the lens, not the frame. So just to run through some of the features of these lenses, they're glass lenses, so they're made of real glass instead of plastic, manufactured by Barberini, who is one of the, if not the largest glass lens manufacturer in the world, owned by Luxottica at this point. And they do lenses for many of the different companies that have glass lenses, but Etnia actually calls them out as being the manufacturer of their lenses. And they use something called HD color technology. And basically what that is that means that they use pigments to selectively boost certain colors, kind of the same way that Maui Jim does with their pigments. So it's sort of like they're popping specific colors to make things look a little more colorful. And they're photochromic. So what that means is that they're light sensitive. And they're not like some of the transitions lenses that go from completely clear to completely dark. This is like a narrow range photochromic, and they call it Cat 2 to Cat 3. So I don't know the exact percentages. I mean, it's probably something like around 30% to 16% detail or something like that. So it's not like a dramatic change. It's almost, you almost don't even notice them changing. It's the only way you can really see that they transition is if you mask off part of the lens, and you can see the difference. But it's not. It's a pretty subtle effect, but it works well. And they have a gradated tint. So what that means is that the lens is darker at the top than it is at the bottom. You can see in the photo it's a little bit more of a clear glass. And these are non-polarized, which I list as a feature because for some situations that's actually more desirable. There's a lot of times when some people feel like polarized is superior to non-polarized, but actually they're just two different ways to make glasses, and each one has their use. And I'll go through some of the advantages of non-polarized for these glasses. And they have a backside AR coating. So that's basically just a coating on the back of the glass that's designed to decrease reflections from the inside of the lens. So like the reflection of your eyeball or your face, that sort of thing. So you don't get those distracting reflections. And there's pros and cons to a backside AR, but most of the higher quality glasses have that type of treatment. And they're oleophobic in theory, which means that they repel oil. So there's some kind of a coating on there that makes them less prone to fingerprints and smudges and that sort of thing. Not really sure how well that works. And they're hydrophobic. And so that means that there's a coating that is supposed to repel water on these glasses. So it's supposed to keep them from fogging up on the inside, is sort of the main purpose of that. This is the Etnia Barcelona Expositio. It has their brown HD photochromic lens. There's not too much information on the Etnia Barcelona lenses, so I thought I'd describe what this lens is like. It's a really pretty awesome lens. Etnia Barcelona sources all their lenses from Barberini, who's one of the premier glass lens makers. And they have a bunch of different varieties of glass that they offer with very little description. So I thought I'd go into it a little bit. So basically as you can see, it's a gradient brown, non-polarized, with kind of a purple anti-reflective coating on the back. They call this a category 2 lens, so it's a little bit higher light transmission. So it won't be as dark as sort of like the darkest sunglasses. This is kind of like a basically a middle ground lens. That's really good in mixed light, kind of intermediate light levels. This is what the lens looks like up against a white background. It's just a white screen that I held the lens up to and took a photo through the lens. And you can see that it's a brown lens, obviously, and it gradates, stays the same color from the top to the bottom, and it basically just becomes more clear towards the bottom. So this is like a single color gradation. There's no change in color, just lens just gets lighter. And we can get in there and look at the colors a little bit. And with, if I just drag this across, I'm looking at the hue number, and that's at the top it's 34, and it as I pull it down it stays like between 34 and 36. And really all this that tells us is that this is a brown lens, and so that hue number of about 36 is like a very medium brown. It's not particularly orange, it's not particularly yellow, you know, maybe a little bit in the orange direction, but it's, I call this pretty much a true brown. We'll say maybe just a slightly bit orange brown, but not as extreme as some browns are in orange. Okay, I'm going to show you what these glasses look like through the lens. So here's uncorrected, and then there's the lens, and everything gets a little bit more extreme than it would actually look because your eye adjusts pretty quickly to the tint, but this sort of gives you an idea of how it's going to change things. And see if I can kind of bring it up and down so you can see the gradation on it. Sort of light in the bottom, a little darker in the top. These have probably adjusted a little bit to the conditions, so it's transitioned some, maybe not as dark as it can get, but a little bit darker than it would be inside. And it's basically just sort of like a little, you know, kind of middle ground sort of a tint. Not something you'd want to wear in super bright sun, but I absolutely love these glasses for this kind of condition right now, which is like, it's not super bright out, sort of clear skies, but we're not getting blasted with sun. There's some shadow. So it's like a real mixed condition kind of thing where these really excel. Yeah, because it's non-polarized, it's probably not something I'd use driving, but for the little walks around town, I love these. Especially when it's like the light's a little bit cooler like this. It kind of boosts everything and gives it more of a warm tint. One of the things that I like about these gradated lenses is that, I mean, besides that they're photochromic and they're adjusting to the light, I can also manually adjust these to the light. If I look up a little bit, I'm seeing through the clearer part, and it makes things a little brighter. And then I just kind of tilt my head down, and now I'm seeing through the darker part. So I can actually adjust these. If I'm getting into a shadow and I want to see a little bit better, I just kind of look up. So I'm looking through the bottom. Then I get out into the sun, I can tilt my head down, and things darken up a little bit. Okay, so here's the photochromic effect of these glasses. I covered one half of it for about 60 seconds and transitioned it. So you can kind of see the line there. The difference between the transitioned part. Oh, there we go, it's a little better. Between the transition part and the untransitioned part. Not a huge difference. It's starting to probably adjust to the light right now. But it's really, you can see it's probably something like a 10% change or something like that. Not anything drastic. It really just, these glasses just kind of stay in that like 2% range. You know, I bet there's something like 18% to 30%. They just, when you have them on, you don't notice them transitioning. It's a really subtle effect, but they do always seem to be kind of like, as long as it's not super bright out or super dark out, they just feel right. They just seem to kind of get just the right, they're really good at sort of that, you know, middle range conditions. What would be some of the uses for these glasses or for this lens? Well, one situation is in that they really excel is mixed light. So what I mean by that is when you have light that's kind of like it's you're in a mixture of shade and bright sun. So if you're walking through the city streets, or maybe there's some trees above, so it's a combination of direct sun, and then you have some areas that are maybe a little bit more shadowed. And the reason that they're good for this is because they're a little bit lighter than a regular lens. They're not as dark as your typical kind of Cat 3 lens, so they're just going to be a little bit more comfortable in that kind of a situation. These are also good in changing light, and what I mean by that is when you're in conditions where, because cloud cover is changing, or maybe you're in a place where you're sort of in a more sunny condition, but then you're in more shade, because these are transitioning lenses or photochromic lenses, they're going to be adapting to the changing light. It's not a super fast adaptation. It's like takes something like 90 seconds for it to transition. But these are really nice for that sort of situation when it's the weather's kind of mixed, and you don't necessarily want to wear your super dark fixed lenses, but at the same time you don't want to wear a really light lens either, because that could be not enough. So these will adapt to the conditions really well. They are good for cool and overcast light. So what I mean by that is when the light is predominantly blue. So let's say like it's just sort of hazy or foggy, or there's cloud cover, and the usual sort of like warm color sunlight isn't there. It's more like blue light, and that's always just a little bit. It's not a typically really pleasant color for our eyes, and we always seem like we want to kind of equalize things to be more like sunny light is kind of is sort of the basis that we're comparing most light to. So this is going to correct that really sort of blue light to warm it up a little bit, and just just kind of improves your mood a little bit, so it's not it doesn't feel so dreary out, and helps you to see in those sorts of conditions too, because the blue light is always hard for our eyes to parse. Casual situations. So these really excel, I find, for things like when I'm walking my dog, or if I'm out to eat at a restaurant where you want some protection from the sun above, but you want to be able to see your menu and see the table and see your food, because they're not such a dark pair of glasses, and the bottom is more clear than the top. So it's going to sort of be really ideal in those kind of situations. Or even if you're just walking, a lot of times the sidewalk is a little bit darker than the sky above, and this kind of lens really equalizes for that. Outdoor reading, these could be really good for that same reason, because you have the more clear section near the bottom. So if you have some sun coming from above, the darker part will filter that out, bottom part will let light through. Or a similar kind of situation, you're looking at your phone or your tablet, and the clear part is going to make it a little bit easier to read, and because they're not polarized, you're not going to have like interference with the screen that you sometimes get with polarized lenses. As far as situations where these glasses probably wouldn't be ideal, driving. Not to say you couldn't use these for driving, but I'm just a really big advocate of polarized lenses for driving. I feel like almost in every situation you want polarized, or at least I want polarized, because there's always this kind of light reflecting, even if light isn't reflecting off of cars, it's reflecting off your dashboard, and it's just distracting. And so I always advocate for polarized when driving. And these I wouldn't, they wouldn't be bad, but I'd much rather have a pair of polarized lenses when I'm driving. Full bright sun. Again, because I talked about these as being like mixed light or changing light glasses, they're sort of perfect for that kind of, not bright but not dim kind of situation. But in like fully bright sun with no shade, nothing to block the sun, I'm going to want to grab just a fixed Cat 3 pair of glasses. And these could just feel just too bright in that kind of a situation. And it could bother your eyes, especially if you're a little bit light sensitive like me. When you have a lot of warm orange light outside, so like if it's, say it's like super bright sun, oftentimes like towards the end of the day when things get kind of orange, or in the morning the light really feels kind of orange. It's not going to be great for that situation because it's just going to, it would work, but it's really going to just boost that whole orange thing. And you've already got that going on, so it's just going to make it too orange. Sports, it's not a great sports lens, mainly because the main thing is that it's glass, and although the optics are great through glass, that doesn't give you any kind of ballistic protection. If you're doing something like a fast-moving sport, you always want something that's going to protect you from if you crash or something hits your eyes. And you usually want something that's lighter weight too for sports, and these are pretty heavy. So in summary, these Etnia Barcelona brown gradient photochromic HD lenses are probably one of my favorite casual lenses. I think that the brown color, it's a little bit kind of yellowy orangey, but something about it, it just feels really right. When I look through it, it's like, some browns just kind of bug me a little bit, but this one just, the colors are super pleasing, and because it's photochromic and a little bit lighter and has a gradient, it really lends itself to, well, to those kind of situations where I'm just walking the dogs or out doing casual things. The frames themselves are a little bit more stylish than some of the sports style frames that most of my glasses fall into. And so I can wear these. I'm not like, big fashion sunglasses guy, but I like that these are attractive and they have nice design. And if I wear them out, it looks kind of appropriate and they're attractive. So just, really just such a good pair to have. This is probably my number one just casual use sunglasses.